thank you everyone for being here. I really love DevCon because it's a chance to actually talk to all of you, to developers, to meet you, to get to know a little bit of your story, and honestly, not just when it comes to how you use Liferay, but it's just great to meet you as people as well, to hear about your life, your families, where you live, all those things. So please do, if you haven't already, come talk to me afterwards. I'd love to just get to know you guys better. But today we get to talk about something else that I really care about, and that's about design and about ways that we can make that more consistent and scalable throughout the design to development to release process. And so to do that, we have to talk about design tokens and design tokens in Liferay specifically. So today, this is kind of where we're going to go. We're going to start out with just an overview of design tokens, basically what they are, why we should use them, why we should care about them, and how we can use them in Liferay. We'll then talk about how to prepare our design tokens for Liferay. Basically, how should we have tokens even work or be used in Liferay? What are the options for that? And then we'll talk about how to use those design tokens in Liferay, what those features are. Talk louder? Okay. It's loud for me. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay. All right. So that's where we're going. So first, let's start with an overview of design tokens. What, why, and how. So what are design tokens? I went to probably the most reliable sources for this. So first, Wikipedia. Design token is a named variable that stores a specific design attribute, such as a color, typography setting, spacing value, or other design attribute, right? It's the idea that these are small pieces that are able to be variables that can be reused kind of throughout your designs and then throughout your development as well, right? And it's named so we can easily reuse and understand what it is. Also thinking about it as design decisions, a way to codify those decisions. And then, I mean, it's another talk, guys, we have to. So what does ChatGPT say? So, and I think ChatGPT is actually pretty good as well here. Design tokens are a single source of truth for design values. Smallest, reusable, machine-readable pieces of design system that ensure consistency across platforms and products. And I like a lot of the things that ChatGPT says, right? I mean, small is helpful, right? Understanding what we're talking about. If it gets too big, it's not going to be helpful as a design token. Reusable is a word that always makes me happy, right? I do not like to duplicate things. So having this be reusable is huge. It's talking about something that's going to help us be more consistent, and that can be consistent not just in one place, but across platforms and products. And so that really just starts to point towards why this is important for us as well. So, but let's ask more specifically, why do we want to use design tokens in Liferay? Well, it's some of what actually ChatGPT already pointed us towards. We want to have consistent styling in Liferay, whether that's page fragments, themes, widgets, out-of-the-box stuff, things that are customized. We want things to be consistent because inconsistencies are bugs. And bugs are not good for users. They make things look like poor quality. It's not something we want, right? We also want design tokens in order to be able to scale well, right? We want to be able to make a change to our designs and then easily propagate that across all of our code. And without design tokens and without consistently applying them, this is difficult, painful, and once again, is probably going to lead to more bugs. And then also, we want to improve collaboration between design and developers. So having this be a consistent language, a consistent way to communicate, where these are the foundational components, the foundational tokens that then design can talk about it, developers know what it means. When they say that this token changed, developers understand how that's going to be changed, how it's going to propagate through. Having this be a shared language that allows us to consistently apply what designers are saying through development process to production. That's going to allow us to more quickly provide new consistent features to our customers. So how then? How do we use design tokens in Liferay? And this is a high level first, and we'll dig in deeper later. But the main idea is that we're going to deploy our design tokens to Liferay in a theme CSS client extension. This is going to be the venue through which design tokens are going to be entering Liferay in general. Then we're going to have the option to use more of Liferay's features because of this. We can change design tokens at runtime using style books. This allows us to have variations of our tokens, different sets of those variations that can be applied consistently to different pages, page layouts, or sites when a change is needed. We can also then use our design tokens to configure page fragments. So once again, that consistency, we're able to apply these tokens and have them available as configurations. So we're not having to make sure that we hard-coded the correct value or that we have to update your page fragment when you made a change to the design. We want to make that easy to propagate that through, so we can configure it with page fragments. And then finally, we want our design tokens to be referenceable, basically anywhere that CSS is available, CSS custom properties. So this is kind of a hint to where we're going as well. One of the key ways that we're going to be using design tokens is using CSS custom properties or CSS variables. And this provides the ability to share those variables, even update them at runtime, and have consistency across the board using that functionality. So preparing design tokens for Liferay. How do we get design tokens into Liferay, right? Well, really, there's 3 different ways that we can be adding design tokens to Liferay in code. So first, as Sass variables, right? So the standard way, right, to write CSS is as Sass first and to compile it to CSS. And then we have access to Sass variables, which are going to be reusable, but they're only reusable at compile time before the theme is built. The second option, right, is CSS custom properties, right? We've got so many new browser features that make it easier for us to develop well, and CSS custom properties or CSS variables is a huge one because now we have variables that are available at runtime in the browser. And I mean, the amazing thing about this, right, is that now we can have 2 different CSS files that if they reference the same CSS variable, they're going to use the same value. And that's game changing, especially for something like Liferay that's going to have different CSS in different locations that may not be able to be compiled at the same time. This is really powerful. And then our third option, right, is Liferay front-end tokens, which are provided by the front-end token definition.json file. It's a mouthful, but it's descriptive, which is able to be provided in either a theme CSS client extension, which is now what we're recommending, or also in our traditional .war themes. And basically, you'll see that the Liferay front-end tokens is going to actually generate a CSS custom property for you. So anything that's available from using CSS custom properties is also available when you're using a Liferay front-end token. So we see, right, that that's available as a CSS custom property. It's also available in any CSS on the same page. But then there's a few things that are only possible when you're using Liferay front-end tokens. So that's that they're going to be changeable at runtime using style books. So that's a huge feature that is only available with Liferay front-end tokens, and also the ability to apply them as fragment configurations. So one other thing to note, right, because we do have some overlap here between the CSS custom properties and Liferay front-end tokens. So be aware that if you do decide that there's a reason that you'd want to use both CSS custom properties and also Liferay front-end tokens, make sure to avoid declaring a CSS custom property at the root level that has the exact same name as a Liferay front-end token. You're going to have a conflict there, so just avoid that. You'll be happier if you ever run into this bug. Now you know. Just don't do it and we'll be okay. So here's the question though. So when should you use which token type? Let's walk through a basic decision tree, right, to get an idea of the general situations that might come about. So do you need to share these tokens outside of the Liferay theme, the Liferay theme CS client extension? Okay, that's the first thing. So if you don't need to share it, then in fact you probably should make sure that you only do it as a Sass variable. If it doesn't need to be shared, don't optimistically share it. It's probably going to make things more complicated and confuse things. So better off to keep it simple, keep it built at compile time, share it there, and that's going to be a good way to handle it. Now, if you do need to share it outside of the theme, oh, and actually one thing to state as well, I forgot to mention this. For all 3 of these options, right, if it's a Sass variable or if it's a CSS custom property, Liferay front-end token, Having it be available only at compile time doesn't mean that it can't be more shared as well, right? Remember, like we're writing CSS, so that means that we can create utility classes, shared components, and make sure that actually our tokens can be reused and shared just by making sure that we're consistently applying those utility classes or shared components across any HTML that we're rendering, no matter where it is. So that also provides options as well. But if you do have a reason to share this token outside of the theme, then we need to ask some other questions, right? Does it need to be referenced in fragment configurations, right? Is this a token value that your page editors are needing to access when they're changing the color of a heading or of a border or the background? If so, then you're going to want to go for a front-end token, Liferay front-end token. If no, well, let's consider the other features that are only available with Liferay front-end tokens. Is Stylebook something that's going to be necessary for you? Once again, if Stylebooks is a requirement, then make sure that you go for the Liferay front-end token rather than the CSS custom property. And so I think you're probably getting the idea. In general, I think the recommendation is most of the time go for a Sass variable or a Liferay front-end token. When it comes to CSS custom properties, I have a hard time seeing a huge amount of value. I can think of maybe one or two use cases. Maybe if you guys have reasons why you would choose to go for just a CSS custom property and not a Liferay front-end token, maybe come talk to me afterwards. The only situation I currently can think of that might be helpful is maybe you're using a component, so another component that's available in the ecosystem that has decided to make their styling API available through CSS custom properties. In that case, it could make sense that you're simply defining those CSS custom properties, defining those values that match your designs in your theme and providing it, and it doesn't overlap with any other way that you're using design tokens. But it's just a compatibility layer to basically properly retheme this other component that you're using. So maybe something like that, but in general, Sass variables or Liferay front-end tokens is likely going to provide you the most value. So we're saying that Liferay front-end tokens provides a lot of value, and we said that the way that you provide that is through this mouthful, the front-end token definition.json file. So what is it, and how do we work with it? So actually, let's just see a quick show of hands. Who here has worked with the Liferay front-end token definition.json file? Okay. A handful, but a large number of you have not. So here's the basic layout. Now this example only has one token in it, so this is not a real-world situation, but it makes it easier to see what we're looking at. So to start with, we have front-end token categories. So we've got basically different hierarchy before we get to the tokens that's going to define how it's laid out within stylebooks. And so we've got categories. Within categories, we have front-end token sets. And then within front-end token sets, we have the actual front-end tokens. And so let's take a closer look at this object to see what these different parts actually are and what they do. So to start with, we've got default value. So with this default value, remember we said that Liferay's front-end tokens end up getting added to the page as CSS custom properties. And so the default value will be used in that initial declaration that takes place at the root level to define the initial value for your token. So that's where you can define that. We then have editor type, and this we have actually three different options. The first option is color picker. This will allow that value to be displayed using the color picker input within the stylebook, which is obviously helpful when you're modifying a stylebook. The second option is it can be a length, which shows a length input, which then separates the actual number value from the units that you're using, right? Pixels, REM, whatever. And the third option is undefined. If you don't declare this value at all, if editor type is not a part of this object, then you'll just have a plain old text input. And obviously that's going to be helpful for some situations where it doesn't make sense for another. For instance, defining a box shadow or something like that. Right now we don't have a more advanced box shadow input, and so a plain text one is going to be a better option than a color picker, obviously, for that. Label. So the label value, that's going to show up in stylebooks as well, labeling your token. This can be translated, so you can Add a language key for that. So either using our language override, our language client extension, or just the default language properties files as well. Mappings. So mappings expects an array with an object inside, but in general, this will only be one object right now. And it's defining the actual name that's going to be used by the CSS variable. So in this case, right, the value is white. So then you'll be able to access that with CSS variables, var -- white to access that token. Name. This is also important. This is used for referencing the token anywhere inside of Liferay. So make sure that this stays consistent, because if this gets changed, then it's no longer going to be mapped anywhere it's used, whether that's in a fragment configuration or in a style book. That will all of a sudden be lost. So the name needs to stay consistent as well. And type is always just a string. There you go. So when you look at that, right, that's kind of complex. And so to be honest, working with these is not super fun. It can be a massive file, a bit of a pain. Updates aren't easy. I mean, modifying a JSON file that's thousands of lines long doesn't make most developers happy. So how should we work with that? And especially since in general, design tokens are going to be created by designers, likely in Figma. And then how do we actually get that into Liferay? Well, what we really probably want to do is think through what's going to be the best workflow to make this happen. And so the idea is your Figma has different ways, actually through plugins, to export tokens. And then we want to take those tokens and make them available to Liferay. It's hard to figure out what the best way is, though, because Figma doesn't have a standardized way, right? There's a number of different plugins that handle this. And so there's no defined absolute for Figma. And so that means what I decided to do on this one was actually create a way, like an example of how to generate Liferay's front-end token definition file from Figma, but in a way that's actually hackable as well. So the URL here is currently a separate branch that has a new theme CSS sample client extension that shows how we can have a simple TypeScript file to generate our front-end token definition file and Sass variables from the exported Figma tokens. And because this could be different depending upon your situation, depending upon what plugin you're using, it's totally hackable. So it's set up with TypeScript so that as long as you make sure that the return types aren't breaking, you're going to end up with a front-end token definition file that's going to work and be readable by Liferay. But it's all just broken up into different functions, so it's easy for you to actually hack it and make sure that you have the logic needed to take the design tokens created by your designers and organize them correctly for use within Liferay. So the idea of how this would work is export your tokens from Figma, paste that file, probably JSON, into your theme CSS client extension. At that point, you could commit those changes right there, quickly see a diff, right, of has anything changed on the design side, right? Did they add tokens, change default values, remove tokens, see what's changed, run the generate token script. That's going to generate your new front-end token definition.json file, as well as the new Sass variables for use within the theme. This provides the option then to, once again, check the diff, see what's changed, and now as you see, okay, some values change, some Sass variables change, maybe a new token is added. Now it's easy to see, okay, I need to apply these new tokens to a few different spots in my CSS, but otherwise, very little change is needed. That's going to be a much simpler workflow than having to manually walk through this process. Deploy to Liferay, and then go ahead and apply the changes where necessary. So I'm really curious to hear you guys' feedback on that. Right now it's a separate branch, but it should be merged into Liferay portal soon, in the next week or so. But I'm curious, has anyone else done anything to generate the front-end token definition file on their own before? Using some sort of script. Little bits, okay. So if some of you have done that, please come talk to me afterwards as well, because I'm sure there's other ways and other like ideas for how to do this even better. But we want to try to help this become an easier thing to manage and really kind of simplify that process for you to make it easy to use design tokens in Liferay. Yeah, so in this case, right, the Lexicon Foundation tokens.json is the exported from Figma, and then run the script, and it's going to create two different files. You'll be able to try that out right now if you want to. All right, so when it comes to using design tokens in Liferay. So first off, one of the huge things that we have for using tokens in Liferay is style books. So style books let us create a modified set of design tokens, and then we can apply that to different pages, page templates, or to an entire site through defining a default token. Remember, we said that all the tokens available in that sidebar, those are what are defined in the front-end token definition.json file. Within stylebooks, tokens can be mapped to other stylebooks, right? So we continue that idea of reuse within stylebooks itself using the variables. And then this is also where editor type comes into play, right? So different editors based upon what the need is. One thing that's really important is just recently, as of 2025 Q2, we made a large update to the architecture of how stylebooks can be applied in Liferay. Before this update, stylebooks depended upon the theme that was applied to the public pages. That was what was going to be used to define the tokens. And that's the most common use case, right? That you're going to have one theme that's applied to the entire site. But if you had some reason to change that, all of a sudden, stylebooks were going to not work as expected. And that caused a lot of different pain points or problems. And so the update now with this feature flag is to make stylebooks dependent upon the theme. So when you create a stylebook now, it's going to ask you which theme you're going to base it off of. And then that allows us to consistently apply it as well. So when you assign a stylebook to a page, you only now have the option to assign a stylebook that is based upon the theme that is applied to that page. And so this provides much more consistency and will work better across the board. The other option, right, is fragment configuration usages, right? So we're able to apply it to the fragments through configurations, but there's also kind of a few limitations here in gotchas that we want to be aware of. So first off, the only fragments that are available, or the only tokens that are available to be applied to color configurations in fragments are ones that have editor type color picker available. So those are the ones that you can then reuse when you're configuring fragments. The other one is kind of an odd one. Font family can be configured, but only if you use these exact CSS variable names. The reason is right now in fragment configurations, this is hard-coded. So it works because it's the same CSS variable. But if you try to create new font families, they won't show up in the fragment configurations. It won't work to change it in stylebooks and have that update with the fragment configurations. You have to use those exact font family names. That's a limitation that we have right now. The other one that has a similar limitation is also the spacer values. So that can be used for margin and padding and such. So these ones also only work when you're using the exact CSS variable names of spacer -1 through 10. So just be aware of, but then those also can be used when that's the case. Also for custom fragment configurations, this is available as well. So when you're creating your own fragments, if you create a new configuration field that's of the type color picker, then that will also be able to use all of the colors defined within your front-end token definition.json file. Other kind of helpful thing to be aware of is there's a special attribute for fragments called the data-LFR styles attribute. And wherever you place this within your fragment, whichever element it's added to, that will be the new element that all of the styles are applied to. So by default, styles that are changed within fragment configurations are added to the outer div that's actually generated by Liferay. But if you use this data-LFR styles attribute, you can choose where it should apply, which makes it much easier to say style and input, which may not inherit the border color or something like that that you want to apply. And then finally, CSS variables utility class, right? Because Liferay front-end tokens are actually CSS variables, anywhere CSS or HTML can be applied, it can be reused. So this allows you to easily style widget templates, web content templates, page fragments, custom widgets, custom element client extensions, and allow it to propagate consistently throughout. So we also just want to know what to improve next. So this is a great one. Come talk to us, make a feature request, let us know. We know that there's still some limitations, there's some gaps, and we want your feedback on where we should go. So please come talk to me, come talk to our product team, and let us build something better and help you guys more. So right, in summary, Design tokens in Liferay, right? They allow for consistent styling, simplified updates, and access to more of Liferay features. It's something that if you're not already, it's critical to be applying to make your jobs easier and to produce a better product. But also, let us know what we can build next to provide you more value. Thanks so much.